Are buyer agents a thing of the past, or are they here to stay? NAR, the National Association of Realtors, came out a few months ago with a massive settlement, $418 million. And with that settlement came a couple of really big changes to our industry. We're gonna break those down for today, but more importantly, we're going to break down what the Northwest MLS, our local MLS here, has decided to do. They've decided to not comply with the NAR changes. We're gonna unpack that all for you today. We're gonna show you what the MLS press release says and kind of our interpretation of what that could mean for you as an agent on market, okay?
All right, so let's back up just a little bit here, because as Mike mentioned, the NAR settlement lawsuit, otherwise known as Sitzer-Burnett verdict earlier this year. And as part of the settlement, they agreed to pay a very large amount of money, $418 million over the next 4 years to the plaintiffs. But they also agreed to change the buyer commissions and how they're shared and how they're marketed. So, Michael, what are those two big changes that have been made?
Yeah, so before I talk about the two changes, I want to make sure everyone understands that's watching this video that buyer agent commissions are still allowed to exist. They just came out and they said that they are not allowed to put them in the MLS. Like, you're not allowed to put in the listing how much the commissions are going to be offered on that particular listing, which is a big change. Like, traditionally it's been listed in the MLS. A lot of markets, they do like, you know, the kind of the co-broker thing where the seller is actually paying the listing firm and the listing firm then pays the buying firm. And that is not going to be the case anymore. The other big change is that they require signed buyer agency agreements as soon as reasonably possible in the buying process, which I think is a fantastic change. So those are the two really big changes that NAR came out with, and the MLS is agreeing to comply with one of those two.
And it's a little bit of a dichotomy because our MLS has previously been posting, and it's been very, very upfront for a really long time. A lot of MLSs apparently have not. So our MLS has tended to be a little bit out front, but we'll get to that here in a sec.
Before we jump into kind of our analysis of the Northwest MLS's position on this, we want to share with you and read you verbatim what they released to all of the members of the MLS just a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to put it up on the screen. And Rachel, if you want to read that for everybody, just so you understand word for word what they're saying. This is not the entirety of the press release. This is just the change that we're kind of focusing on today. Okay?
Yeah, the meat and potatoes of what we're looking at right now. So this is the press release. The NWMLS will not opt into NAR's proposed settlement agreement. NWMLS's rules and forms, together with the revised agency law, provide for consumer-friendly brokerage relationships. Sellers negotiate how much to compensate the listing firm and decide whether to offer to contribute toward the buyer's broker's commission and amount of any such offer. Buyers agree how much to pay their own brokers at the outset of their relationship and can then negotiate for the seller to help cover that cost as part of the purchase. NAR's proposed settlement agreement largely duplicates the rules and practices in place in NWMLS's service area for several years, with one notable exception. The settlement agreement eliminates compensation transparency for buyers and restrains sellers' choice by prohibiting sellers from making offers of compensation through the MLS. Instead, settlement agreement allows for offers of compensation off MLS, where that information is hard to find and not available to all buyers and brokers. That change is a step in the wrong direction and is detrimental to consumers and brokers alike. NWMLS strives to provide consumers with all relevant information about a listed property to promote efficiency, competition, and an open and free market. NWMLS's rules and forms broaden, not limit, consumer choice and do not favor any brokerage service model or compensation structure. NWMLS allows the market to operate unimpeded by MLS rules. NAR's removal of compensation transparency from the MLS pushes consumers and brokers to make secret deals off MLS, inviting deceptive practices, discrimination, and unfair housing. Depriving buyers of information about the transaction risks harming buyers, especially those buyers who are already disadvantaged, including first-time homebuyers and members of protected classes. Of course, prohibiting offers of compensation in the MLS also unnecessarily restrains the seller's choice and absolute right to offer compensation to a brokerage firm representing the buyer. So what does this mean?
Wow, there's a lot in there to unpack. Yeah. First of all, I have a love-hate relationship with the MLS, just to be very clear about that. There's some things they do that are super archaic. I don't love the technology. But I think that their independent analysis and them standing up to the NAR settlement in this case was a fantastic decision. It's a great display of leadership. And I also want to commend them for being like way ahead of the country for years. I believe we are the only MLS, there may be others I'm not aware of, but to the best of my knowledge, we're the only MLS that has had the option to not pay any seller commission, right? Like no selling agent commission, no buyer commission, right? If you want to pay zero, you've had that opportunity to do it for 3 years. And guess what? Some sellers have tested that, and the result they got is their home didn't sell. It's really simple. If you've got 3 different houses you're going to show a buyer, and one of them doesn't offer any commission, well, that home's probably going to get shown last, first of all, if you ever make it there at all. And then if the buyer has to pay the commission, then the buyer now doesn't favor that house anymore because it's sort of included on the other 2 houses. So it doesn't make economic sense. And at some point, the fair market just kind of takes over, and that's what we've seen in our market for the last couple of years. So there's a lot of people saying, across the country and freaking out, especially agents saying, that there's not going to be any buyer commissions offered anymore. And I just simply don't think that that's the case. I could be wrong, but we've had this opportunity to do that in our market for 3 years, and it really hasn't been taken advantage of. I'm going to pick on Lennar Homes for just a second. They are the one seller in our market that has done this a lot. And buyer agents don't go out of their way to sell their houses. They make sure that when they show a Lennar home, they show 5 or 6 homes from other builders, local builders that have good broker relationships, good warranty programs that work with and partnership with agents. So.
Well, and look what has happened, right? There was a time, maybe 6 months to a year, where they were offering literally a big old goose egg, a 0 for buyer brokerage compensation.
They still are.
They are trying, yes, multiple plats still are. But what they found out really quickly was that if buyer brokers or buyers themselves are now going to other locations because they're compensating buyer agents better, the free market has now taken over, and it's simple economics. So now we're seeing a rise back in those buyer brokerage offerings from the seller directly in the MLS to those brokers because of, who knew, the free market.
My real estate background before I was an agent was actually in real estate building and development. And what we would always do is always offer a nice large commission to the buying firm, just because we want to make sure that agents were partnered with us, that had the buyers, they were incentivized to make sure that they really promoted our homes. We view them as partners, and that's what smart sellers are going to continue to do. But so just to be clear, that's the first thing our MLS has allowed for the last 3 years. The second component of this that they've allowed, and they've been ahead of the curve on as well, has been the decoupling of commissions. And when I say that, you've heard that term probably thrown around a lot recently. What that means is, like, when we sign a listing agreement, it specifies how much is going to the listing firm and how much is going to the buying firm. So it's not saying that the seller is paying 6% and 3% is going to the listing firm, right? Or 6% is going to the listing firm, and then we're paying the buyer firm. It's saying that we're paying this much to the buyer firm, this much to the listing firm. They're very specific about it. So there's no ambiguity there whatsoever. It's super transparent. The seller knows exactly how much is being offered. They're choosing that number. We're not choosing that number. That's 100% up to them on how much they decide to offer. So those are the 2 things that our MLS has been way ahead of the curve on, that I just want to really commend our MLS for. And I think that that's going to have it's going to have a big difference for agents in our market versus going across the entire country where this is all new stuff for agents. Like, we're kind of ahead of the game. A couple other things I think we can agree on. Our industry has done a super poor job on the buy side on clarifying how we get paid. On the listing side, I think as an industry, we've done pretty well explaining to sellers, hey, we charge X, we get paid when your home sells, we do all these things for you. We kind of clarify our value proposition and what our process is. On the buy side, I mean, it's just not been the same, right? The process has been very just mixed and all over the place. Not a lot of framework behind it. A lot of buyer agents just grab a buyer, throw them in their car or take them around, show them houses. They don't take the time to sit down with that buyer, walk them through the buying process, set expectations, clarify what they're going to do as the professional for that buyer, and clarify exactly how they get paid as well. So this is a good thing that we have to get transparent about this. This is being a professional. This is a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Another thing that we can certainly agree on, dual agency. Dual agency is not in the best interest of our clients. Let's be perfectly honest. The only person that wins in a dual agency setting is the agent, right? It's similar to like a defense attorney or a prosecutor also representing the other side, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So, we in our company, in our organization have the standard that we don't practice dual agency. At the end of the day, we have to stay subjective to the fiduciary responsibility and relationship that we have with our clients. So very, very, very rarely in situations will we act as a dual agent. We respect and want to partner with other agents in our market. And therefore, that's how we explain the value that we're able to provide to our clients.
So the other thing I think we can agree on, and everyone knows this, buyer agents should be paid. Like, no one expects that work to be done for free. Your buyers don't expect it. The sellers definitely don't expect it. The listing agent does not expect it. Everyone knows how much work goes into representing a buyer. It is dozens of hours, lots of work, and you don't get paid until you're actually successful. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and no one expects that to happen for free. They just don't. So I think we can agree on that as well.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, the commissions are wrapped into the final purchase price that a buyer is paying for a home. So really, at the end of the day, the buyer is paying the commissions. It's just about how that value is wrapped into the price of that particular property.
Yeah, and I touched on this earlier, but the last thing I think we can agree on is just the sloppy representation we've done of buyers as an industry. On our team 7 years ago, we committed to our formal buyer consultation process. I've done lots of training videos and spoke on this in multiple stages across the country, helping buyers understand how to do a consultation properly, how to set expectations with buyers, how to articulate their value proposition, and really clarify and be very transparent about how they get paid as well. I would really encourage you to practice that if you're an agent, to really get specific on it. A lot of people do really good, like I said, about scripting and role-playing listing presentations, but they have not put that same effort into the buy side. I think that's something you really want to do.
So to recap, I think overall, we and our whole organization and a lot of agents in our market are very, very happy with our MLS really stepping up, holding firm that the NAR settlement has some really good points to it, and the transparency that's creating and forcing people into process on the buyer side has been a really fantastic improvement. But that not advertising buyer agent compensation is not in anyone's best interest. And so instead it kind of makes things murky. So kudos to the Northwest MLS really for holding their ground on this and for continuing to advertise what the seller is going to be offering for buyer brokers.
It's also a little bit ironic, don't you think, Rachel, that everyone has been freaking out about these changes, and then at the end of the day, turns out there's not really any big change happening.
There is
in
no
market.
Difference. Yeah.
All you got to do is sign a buyer agency agreement, people. Just do that, and you're going to be good to go. But before you do that, make sure you've built lots of value into that relationship, okay? And you're going to be just fine.
Absolutely.